I'm John.
Well, I'm Anne, and we've lived here in this house, which is a converted farm building, an old oast house, and we've lived here now for 34 years. Well, as far as we know, the original dwelling was the cottage, which is next door, and this house was a farm building, and we know for certain that in this room there was a huge cider press until comparatively recently. So when it was bought to be converted into a dwelling, the builder actually built almost a completely new house inside. So this part of the house, for example, has a second skin, and it's completely sort of insulated from the outside walls, which are really just old rough brick. So it was obviously a big building. The bit that you'll probably see later, the dining room, is the area where the kilns were. But this part that we're sitting in now was originally a warehouse, and it contained, as far as we know, a very large cider press. And we think that the yields that that they gained each year are actually written on the beams just above. So it's quite an interesting house.
In the initial stages when we first moved in, the builder who converted it and lived in it for the first 9 or 10 years, we knew him personally and his wife. So when we moved in, we just accepted that the building, it had the routine checks, was fine. It was only after about 10 or 15 years that we realised that there were certain sort of damp problems. And it was very difficult to know where the damp was coming from. Was it coming from the ground upwards or coming from the roof problems, which seemed very unlikely because the roof has been completely renewed. We went into several investigations, not with a lot of success. And it was only when I saw the advert in the listed property with a short article that we realised that Aquapol could very well be the answer to our problems.
And we've done all sorts of things in the meantime. We've had the front re-rendered. We discovered that there had been, in fact, a major problem over the French window in this room, which was rectified, but the damp kept coming through. And one of the areas that I think was most worrying for me was the fact that the dining room, the wall there, the damp was coming through, and we tried everything really.
That's an internal wall.
Yes, to rectify it, but nothing had worked. So, you know, for us, that was a really important thing. And also in the cottage, I had huge damp problems, and we assumed it was coming through the rendering on the outside, but it seems it wasn't that. We've had all the cracks filled in. And in fact, when Aquapol came, one of their diagnosis was that it was water coming up from ground level. And they felt strongly that their system could actually improve that situation.
And this really seemed to be possibly the answer to our sort of problems.
But we were a bit sceptical because it seemed a little bit like snake oil, didn't it? And
yes.
It seemed like magic.
Yes.
And I, for one, couldn't believe that it would ever work. Yes. I thought it would just, you know. Yes. I thought it was just one of those bright ideas that was going to come to nothing.
And when I initially rang and spoke to Val, and he assured me that this could very well be our answer. But then I have seen a magician produce a rabbit out of a hat, so I was certainly a bit sceptical. Yes, but then the proof is in the pudding.
When Aquapol came in, they were very efficient. They were very professional. They made it clear that the whole system had a scientific base, and that it wasn't just sort of smoke and mirrors. And the way they explained it made me think that it would probably work, which I certainly hadn't thought before they came.
They were efficient, they went about their job in an unobtrusive way, and at the end of it they explained exactly what was involved, and then left us to think about it and to consider, and if we wish to go ahead, then we could then phone them and ask them to come back. We tried everything, desperation.
But also,
You mustn't try that.
I think what made me go for it was understanding that the system was small and unobtrusive. I had imagined that it would be large, that it would get in the way, that it would disfigure the ceiling. I feared that there would be, great big pods in each room. But when I understood that one pod would effectively treat the whole house, then that convinced me that it was a good idea.
And no cabling, very little cabling. It was a very pleasant surprise. We just didn't even realise it was there. You walk through the doorway. It was just up above you. You took absolutely no notice of it whatsoever.
I was a little bit worried about holes being dug in the wall to check for damp, but again, the holes that have been made to make the checks are very tiny, and Aquapol always fill them so that they're completely unobtrusive. And I'm delighted to say that the dining room is now dry, which is wonderful. And in a few months we can repaint the areas that were affected. We found dealing with a company very easy, very straightforward. They were always available. They were prepared to fit in with us when we were available to have servicing done or checks done. And they were very good at explaining exactly what was going on. And for me, that was really important because I think I had visions of great big holes being dug in the wall and ugly systems all over the place, and that wasn't the case.
I have already suggested to 3 friends of mine who have old buildings and damp problems, 2 commercial and 1 residential. For heaven's sake, investigate it. You'll be very silly not to.
Yes, I mean, I think what I would say is I would certainly recommend it because it's actually proved itself, and if something has proved itself, then it recommends itself. And I think the aesthetics of it are probably the most important thing. The fact that it really is a system. It looks like a light fitting. It's in a room. It's in the utility room. It doesn't show. It's absolutely super. And so for anyone with a listed property, you could put it in between the beams. You really wouldn't notice it was there. And it's very effective.